Good morning, afternoon, and evening, everyone. Welcome to the Game Week 16 pod of the FPL Wire, the final game week before the World Cup. I'm your host, Zofa, and I'm joined as usual by my friend, Big Man Bucker. How's it going, buddy?
Thanks for having me, Zoff. No Pranil, unfortunately, for us on this pod. He has fever.
That's what he
Unfortunately, won't be
says.
joining us.
That's what he said. But I think he's just been missing his wife so much. He was away for a month. He just wants to spend every possible minute with her. Such a good husband, such a good son-in-law, something we should all aspire to, Bucker. Don't you think? Before we talk about the FPL, what a weekend for you for the cricket. Let's talk about that first. What were your feelings like on Saturday?
I mean, I had given up hope that we
Saturday, right?
Enough hope that we'd qualify for the semifinals, but I mean, I still woke up on Sunday morning. I thought I'd just watch the Dutch take on South Africa, and you never know with South Africa. They're known to sort of choke on the big occasions, and that's what happened. And it was like everything went according to plan this weekend. My own team did well. FPL went great. So yeah, couldn't have gone any better.
Yeah. Let's talk FPL.
Hoping for an India-Pakistan final, by the way.
Yeah.
Hoping for an India-Pakistan final, by the way. It could be on. It could be on. And I really hope that both teams make it to the final so that some scores can be settled.
Cool. Let's talk about FPL first and the entire fiasco that happened on Saturday. Should I start?
Sure.
Yeah. So I'm just going to go through what the experience was like for me on Saturday. And people think I'm like the super zen guy and all that stuff, but Saturday was not like that at all. So like I had basically made a decision chart with different possibilities. So like, but basically thinking was I have to have a City captain. The only 2 game weeks left. They have the highest haul potential, and the Salah haul wasn't really going to hurt, right? He had what 30% EO, and I had exact cash to get in Darwin. So I was thinking I'll do Salah to KDB if both those guys are benched. Plus, Alvarez starting wasn't confirmed, and it just didn't sit right with me because he could just get 50 to 60 minutes if Haaland, he was on the bench. It also means a move next week. So when the league was out, I had the moves lined up, but I just could not push the buttons on selling Salah. Something did not sit right. So I thought I would think about it, wait a couple of minutes, but then I got a message, boom, servers crashed. Then you go full on into panic mode, and then you're just trying, frantically on different devices to get the moves through and all that stuff. Full on panic. Now the app didn't confirm my moves at any point. I tried for 10 minutes, shut the app down, opened another app, and on there the moves, it showed that I had gone through. Again, full panic because the captaincy was on Haaland. It hadn't switched to De Bruyne. Again, went back to different devices, tried doing it, but the change just wasn't saving. Then the deadline is over. Then I was refreshing to see whether the moves went through or not. And I ended up with Haaland cap, KDB vice. So the moves went through, but not the captain. So I had like full on anxiety, a panic attack type thing for an hour. And this is just not what I signed up for, right? This is not what we play FPL for when we start playing 10 years ago and all that stuff. So I had a drink after like literally 3-4 years because I just needed to calm down. And that drink ended up becoming several drinks. Bakar, are you still here or are you already gotten bored?
No, I can hear you. I want you to complete your rant because
then I want to listen to
I'm sure
what
a lot
happened.
of I'm sure. Yeah, I'm sure a lot of FPL managers can relate because what happened was a farce. I mean, it really shouldn't be happening. A lot of us spend lots of time throughout the week reading articles, watching podcasts, researching, watching Match of the Day. And if you sort of still leave yourself at the risk of the app, which is not in your control happening, which can just sort of take the decision out of your hands of what, then I mean, what's the point? It takes the fun out of the game. It really shouldn't be happening. There are a lot of people who have rightly felt hard done by with their transfer just because of the site crashing and the service crashing. It really shouldn't be on. I mean, even Andy Murray tweeted about it after the game. And when, FPL has now become like a mainstream thing where like 9-10 million people are playing it, this simply should not be on. I mean, I personally benefited from the crash, but this really isn't fun because, this is not, as you say, this is not something you sign up for. It just takes merit out of the game completely.
Yeah, I'm sure several guys all around, we all experience anxiety attacks, panic attacks, and we play this game as an escape from real life. You don't need this sort of shit from a fantasy football game. But at any point of time, I don't blame the leakers. 1%, I think it's purely the fault has to be there with the FPL servers. A server has to stay on till the deadline. Like if the deadline is advertised at, let's say 11, it has to be working till 10:59. We should be allowed to do our moves till the time that's advertised, right? People say, oh, you should have done your moves early. That's bullshit. When you have to hand in an assignment, if the deadline is 11, you can submit it up to 10:59. You don't get extra points for submitting something early, right? And it's not like only the engaged players are getting the news now. Even all the casuals knew that Haaland was benched. I was getting messages from friends I hadn't spoken to for a long time that your FPL server is down. I need to change my captain. And these aren't guys who follow FPL religiously as us. It's very mainstream news. Almost all media outlets were carrying the news that Haaland was benched 10 minutes before. So I think whether people got their moves through Alvarez captain, Salah captain, some people got lucky with Salah to KDB not going through and the captain ended up on Salah. Some ended up with Cancelo vice captain doing a -4 like our friend Prus. So this all really came down to server lottery, right? Not FPL skill, which, and I don't swear often on the podcast, this is completely fucked up. No really other words to say about it. And I think FPL got bailed out a bit by the Haaland goal. Imagine he had missed the penalty, right? So much of the user base were just stopped. They're seeing, what is this? I can't get in, change my captain. This guy got in, he could change his captain to Alvarez. They would have lost a big percentage of the user base, which is what they don't want. So I just think they simply have to do better. It's not a fun experience and it will turn people off. The servers have to work at deadline, even at 10 million load. And I don't know what the solution is about, moving deadlines and etc. I don't know what the long term is, but ultimately the servers have to stay up, whatever happens. It's like, it's a big organization that's not really starved for money. The servers being down, there's no excuse for it. And I think to make things worse, the cancel or red card, it made things even more swingy. Because, City were dominating the game. And Pep said post-game that if they went 3-0 up, Haaland probably doesn't even come on. So Salah Vice would have come in, KDB maybe gets more points, etc., etc. So luck played a huge part. I think what happened this week, and I think if people were on the wrong side of it, they shouldn't feel bad because this is not the kind of experience or variance that we signed up, right? It's not even luck. This is purely force majeure.
Exactly, Zoff. I mean, and it's not even the first time that this has been happening. It happened last week. So FPL really should have seen it coming this week, and even last season it happened. I mean, I remember I free hitted last season, and I ended up having Son second on my bench at home to Southampton on my free hit just because the service crashed. Like, I mean, FPL really should be. They really should be working on this because, again, when you have such a huge fan base, this cannot be happening. I mean, it will simply turn more people off, and I mean, they have to eventually fix this, or else they'll lose a large part of their face.
Yeah, it's awful. Awful. My sympathy to everyone who ended up at the wrong side, but we just keep playing and plodding along, and it really feels like we need a break from FPL. It sounds funny saying that you need a break from a fantasy football game, but it's all just been so draining this past like 3-4 weeks, especially. I'm looking forward to the break myself. Cool.
You're not playing the World Cup fantasies off?
Nah, I have no idea about like the Brazilian teams or like the random teams who plays what, and in general just wanted some time off. Cool. Let's move on to this.
Enjoy the time off. Sure. I think I'll be playing the World Cup fantasy, but yeah. Anyways, enjoy the break.
Yeah, I don't think LR will be playing either. Cool. Let's do our sponsor plug and jump in right to this week's fixtures and beyond.
Sure.
All data you see on the FPL Wire is taken from the Fantasy Football Scout members area. The new improved members area is now up and running, and the new comparison tool lets you compare key stats for up to 3 players. Player projections are also live, and as always, you can access the custom stats table we create or make one for yourself. Sign up for membership today using our affiliate link in the description below.
Right. So what shall we do? Let's start discussing going fixture by fixture, and then we can discuss the players, etc., eventualities. And I think the best place to start is with Man City. Once again, just before we came on, there was a Pep Guardiola press conference where he's again trolling us, talking about Haaland not being completely ready, etc. But I haven't seen the actual video. I think it's a little bit in context with regards to his Norway participation, and he's sort of making his bed for benching Haaland against Chelsea. The example of this is David Moyes recently in some sort of competition. Bowen had an ankle knock midweek, and then he was free for the weekend. I think they just make up excuses to bench these players. What do you think?
I think that's probably the case over here as well, because he played 30 minutes against Fulham, looked sharp, and I would have expected him to rest this fixture, even if it's against Chelsea. I mean, it's not as if Chelsea are in the best of forms, and it's a Carabao Cup after all, right? So it's not as if Haaland is needed for this fixture. Might be better off saving him for the more important, difficult fixture against Brentford's off. Don't you think?
I take that, and it's completely deserved. I think I know we're digressing a little bit, but Chelsea was so bad. 0.25 XG at home to a top 6 rival. It's all my years of following Chelsea, even under Villas, Boas, Scolari or whatever. At no point have I ever felt that we're never going to score in that match. We could have played for 360 minutes, 500 minutes or whatever, and we weren't scoring a goal. Absolutely awful.
It's not just this game as well. I mean, Chelsea scored 2 goals in their previous 4 games now. It's just not looking the side which are creating too many chances. It just look completely devoid of ideas. I mean, Havertz, Aubameyang just don't offer that much these days. So I don't know. It's going to take something drastic after the World Cup for Chelsea to turn things around from an attacking point of view.
Apologies to the chat for if you guys are experiencing any audio issues. It's absolutely pelting down over here where I live. So the rain might be affecting the quality of the internet. It's unavoidable. Right. Let's talk about City players first. Pakar, you're an Alvarez owner, as are lots of people. What are your thoughts there?
City, I mean, again, this looks like the fixture to target again this week. And the important thing over here is that it's the first kickoff. So a lot of us own Foden, Alvarez, De Bruyne, Haaland even. And again, this news is going to be very critical to deciding our moves this week. So firstly, the main question that comes to my head when we're talking about City is that, do we make the transfers before the team news this time, or do we sort of run the risk of the service crashing again? What do you think?
I think you weigh the risk. I think like you probably have your moves lined up and executed literally the second when the league comes out. The league is scheduled at 18:40. Be ready to go literally at 18:40 with the buttons pressed. Don't wait. Even that's a mistake I made. I assumed that the servers would go down maybe like 5 to 6 minutes prior, not 20 minutes prior.
Exactly. But again, you have to just be ready with your moves, both on the website and on the app. In case the website doesn't work, the app could work. I mean, it worked for me this time. I don't really know whether the app works in generally or not, but this was the first time I downloaded it and it worked for me. So I mean, maybe. But I haven't really heard great things about the app, because there have been people who've made transfers and they've sort of the is sometimes not exactly in order, and I don't know whether it works or not, but it worked this time, so I'll give it a try again. Anyway, I mean, I personally own Alvarez and De Bruyne. If Haaland is starting, I will basically reverse my transfer this week, and there's no way I'm going without Haaland if he's starting this week. He has to be the captain. I mean, I did not own him for that 25-30 minute spell against Fulham, and I was terrified. He could have had a brace or a hat trick. He was looking very sharp. So there's no way that I'm going without him, despite the fact that De Bruyne has a very good option himself this week. But with his ownership, it's too risky to go without.
Completely agree, because I think a lot of questions we got were maybe that is Salah good enough alternative captains to Southampton, but the risk is too high, right? You don't want to carry that sour taste in your mouth. Imagine, let's say you get stuck on the wrong side of variance, Haaland bangs, Salah doesn't. You're going to be carrying that sour taste in your mouth for like 30, 40 days. It's just not worth it. I think maybe it was game week 38. Maybe you have had some rank goals or something you could bet against it. But at this stage, I wouldn't go against Haaland. If you get some sort of idea that he's starting, bring him back in.
For sure. And it's going to cost me a hit, but I made enough gains this week, so I don't think I should be looking at it that way. I'll sell Alvarez as well if I get news that he isn't starting. Do you think Foden starts? By the way, lots of questions on Foden coming in. I don't know. There's something wrong, man. He's been benched now for 3 games in a row. Something definitely isn't right.
Definitely, because I could have taken 2. Maybe 1 game fitness, the other game opponent related, but 3 does seem that something's not right there. And I think he'll start against Chelsea in the Carabao Cup. And I read a very interesting article today on The Athletic where it talks about Foden and his regret about getting injured before the Euro final. And that was a freak injury that happened in training. So I don't know if it's like, maybe I'm just putting 2 and 2 together and I'm assuming things, but maybe Pep has seen that he's not giving it his all in training, and that's why he's started to bench him. But it can't be purely football related. There's something definitely that's happened in the background that's pissed Pep off.
Exactly. And again, if you own Foden, like we've said earlier, just make sure you have your transfers ready. Make sure you have a plan A and B in case he's starting, in case he's not starting, and just execute the moves as soon as we hear any team news.
Let's talk about the targets though. Who do you think the Alvarez replacements are? And let's try to keep them in the same bracket. We'll discuss Nunes and all that stuff also, but they are significantly more. In a similar price bracket, let's say around 7-ish.
I think if you don't have Solanke, then probably him, because I can't really think of too many strikers in that price range. There's Wilson. I like Wilson. I do think he's going to do well against Chelsea this week, but I'm not sure whether I'd be buying him this week. There's Jesus against Wolves as well, but he's like $1 million more expensive. So Jesus is one I like. I think he has potential against Wolves as well. If you want to go cheaper and upgrade your defense or your midfield, then Solanke is someone I like.
The options are limited, isn't it? Because West Ham, Skamaka, you don't even know he's going to start or not. Forest also, yeah. I don't know. Forest, obviously, don't even look at Forest, but Everton, I don't see anyone. Brentford, Tony isn't an option because he plays City. The options are actually very limited this week, whom I really like. And I think LR isn't here, so we have to do the Manchester United agenda for him. I think Martial, there's a good chance he starts. I like Martial because that matchup for against Fulham, I think it's a good one for Manchester United, the way they play. And Fulham at home, I think, is a better fixture than when Fulham come to visit. They're very open on their own patch. They commit more men forward. So I like the Martial option there too.
I agree. Ronaldo was really poor at the weekend, and I do think Martial is going to start. So I like Martial in that price bracket if you can afford him. He's really good option actually.
What about any of the Villa guys?
I still don't trust them enough. I don't think I'd go there.
That's what I'm saying. I'm just short of options because you can't even look at Edward anymore. I think Zaha is going to start up top again. So
yeah, because he thrived in that role. I'm not really sure.
Yeah, so I think
and Brighton at home are decent, so I won't look at an Aston Villa attacker for sure.
I'm just scraping the barrel here. I'm just trying to see, like, who the Alvarez replacements are. We still don't know what's up with Mitrovic, if he's actually in Serbia, if he's going to be available or not. So there's people who might have both those issues this week to deal with.
Yeah, I personally think there's something up there. I mean, if he has an ankle injury, this has been going on for a while now. I think he's going to be rested again. I don't think he's going to be rested before the World Cup.
I think he just told him that I played through injury for the first few games. Now the World Cup is coming. I'm not going to risk my participation. And it's crazy, right? Yeah. You think about it, this Sunday is the last kickoff of the Premier League game. 7 days after that, the World Cup kicks off. It's unreal just to fathom that. Like 7 days the World Cup kicks off from the last Premier League fixture.
Exactly. And I don't really see the need for Fulham to rush him back in if he has even the slightest of pain.
Yes. So I don't really see many options. I think let's just round up top 3 replacements for Alvarez.
I mean, Nunes would be my number 1 if you can afford him. If not, then I'd go Martial, Solanke, Wilson in that order.
I think I'd agree with your order, as well as Nunes being probably the best pick in that bracket. And then Jesus, I think you could probably switch in Jesus over Martial. I still feel so, even though he's been off form, just the Arsenal attack, and Wolves isn't a tough fixture anymore.
The only thing that I'm slightly skeptical about is that it's going to be the first game under the new manager at home.
No, he's not taking charge, buddy.
No.
Let me correct you there. He's not taking charge this weekend. He's taking charge after that. So no new manager bounce.
I see. In that case, it's different. Yeah, in that case, it's different.
Where the new manager bounce might be there, because I believe Southampton have already parted ways with Hasenhüttl, and the new guy might be in charge by the weekend, but he's not going to make them prime like Catanaccio, AC Milan. So I don't think what can he do really in 3-4 days, but players will obviously start to give more effort, as we've seen that completely given up under Hasenhüttl. Cool. What else would you talk about Man City? I think Cancelo should play because he's going to be suspended midweek, so I think he's one of the safer starters. KDB to Salah, would you do that move for free or for a hit?
I'd only consider it if I was captaining Salah, to be very honest. And if Haaland is starting, then I won't look at it.
I agree with you there. Completely.
Let's say if Haaland was out, would you do KDB to Salah for a hit to captain Salah? I mean, KDB is a good captaincy option in his own right anyway, right?
I think so. I would just probably stick with KDB.
Yeah. I think I agree.
Cool. Let's move on from City then. Bournemouth, Everton, you've already talked up Solanke. I like him for this fixture. Not much else we can skip.
Yeah, Everton, I mean, their attacking numbers haven't been great this season, especially away from home. So Calvert-Lewin really isn't that good of an option, especially away from home.
He's having some injury issues also. I'm not even sure he's fit for this fixture.
Yeah, that's right.
Cool. Now, we're talking about Liverpool, Southampton. Salah, Nunes, both great picks. Defense, probably not worth a transfer because I think Southampton are capable of scoring.
Yeah, and I mean, I own Trent, so obviously I'm not going to sell him this week, but again, he's been underwhelming. Liverpool tend to concede like 2 to 3 big chances per game, even against the likes of, the inferior opposition. So wouldn't be surprised if they conceded again, but if you have him, then almost certainly hold on to him.
Yeah, because if the bounce, what's funny about Southampton, the last 2 games, the numbers in terms of XG are not bad. Even against Palace, against Newcastle, both the games, they were ahead of them for XG. They're just not putting away the chances.
Yeah, I mean, I watched the plenty of chances. They should have scored much earlier. I mean, Trippier somehow been dodging these goals that they concede at the end, but
I think the goals they concede are partly because of the substitutions he's making. Like at Fulham, he subbed the entire back 4. Here he slapped Trippier. Part of the reason they're conceding is because of the changes he's making to the back four.
Yeah, which is great for you if you're a Trippier owner, but if you own Pope,
I mean, Trippier points don't even matter.
it's
That's what
frustrating.
people are like, yeah, Trippier got the clean
Yeah.
sheet banged. I'm like, what, 98, 99 EO? Like, what does it even matter?
Yeah, it's gone to the point where it really doesn't matter. You're right.
Hmm. Anything much? Liverpool, Southampton, move on.
No one, yep.
We already discussed captaincy. I think the Haaland is definitely a better pick. If Haaland is out, then you could look at the Liverpool pick. But really don't look at the Liverpool guys if Haaland is starting. Forest versus Palace.
Agreed.
Do you think if someone has issues, Neko is worth starting against Palace? I don't think so.
No, I really don't think so. I mean, Forest, they're conceding even in some of the winnable games. They're far too open. I won't go there at all.
I like the look of Zaha though. Like if someone like you're looking out of KDB, if you want to get out of KDB this week, I think brace potential for Salah in the central role is quite high.
I'm not sure whether I'd say brace potential, but he should get some returns. I mean, Palace away from home in general are very underwhelming. And even this week, the numbers weren't great. I mean, yes, there were a slight improvement on what we generally see from them away from home because they're very conservative. But yeah, I mean, he should be good for at least one return this week.
Who are you looking at as your KDB replacement?
That's an interesting question because I can go to Saka, I can go to Foden, I can go to Kulusevski even. Again, I would prefer the Man City player if I got news that he was starting, but I'm not sure whether Foden's going to start. And in case he doesn't, then I think I'll probably go with Saka because I think he's a reliable bet with penalties, and I don't have any Arsenal attack anyway, so it's good.
Martinelli,
picking a
but
player against Wolves.
Again, Martinelli doesn't count.
Yeah, he doesn't count. He's like Trippier, right? He doesn't really count. So
I think that's let's talk about that question about that like that midfield replacement. Let's try ranking them again, as we usually do. Your top three. Let's keep it to around the 8 million. Let's keep an 8 million budget, 8-ish.
If we get news that Foden is starting, then I'd still think Foden is the best. If not, then Saka for me. Then number 3 would be Kulusevski.
Do you see Kulusevski as somebody with haul potential? Because again, he's mostly assist potential, right? I'm trying to find the 15-point guy. That's what we're all looking for. Essentially, a 1 week free hit. We're looking for the 15-point guy there.
He looked sharp, and one thing I've noticed with him is that Spurs generally they tend to play well. Even when he's in the side, their goals per game increases significantly. I don't think he's someone with brace potential, but he should be safe for 8 to 9 points. I'll put it that way. If you're looking for brace potential, then I think Trossard probably has more than Kulusevski, if I'm being honest. But I think I prefer Saka and a City guy over Trossard.
That's interesting because I'm looking for more goal scorers. So I would, like you said, Trossard, Zaha, and Saka. I mean, let's just say the City guy goes above all else because there's a whole starting thing. But I would probably go Trossard, Zaha, Saka. My 3 guys in that order. What about Miggy?
I mean, every single week, I sort of refuse to believe that he's going to keep up his form, and he just continues to surpass our expectations. He's doing really well. I do think this is Newcastle at home are a different animal. I do expect them to beat Chelsea, and in all seriousness, I think Almiron does have good potential again this week. So if you own him, he's a very good option. Yeah. I don't think I'd go out of my way to buy him though. I just simply think there are better options this week.
Yeah, the funny thing about EO, right, that Salah 15-pointer had about as much damage to my rank as a Almiron 8-pointer. And I just couldn't believe that. Like I had 30k down for Salah, 29k down for Almiron's 8 when they got literally half the points. Can you imagine that? If I told you that 1 year ago. What difference a year makes?
It's absolutely crazy. It's absolutely crazy.
Unreal.
He's like the 4th top scorer in the league. Actually, only 3 players have more goals than him.
I'm not even sure in terms of FPL points. I think he was right at the top. He was well above Salah. I'm not sure what it is after this weekend. He's probably still up there. Anyway, let's move on to Spurs.
So your first would be first would be the City player, then Trossard.
Yeah, City player, Trossard, Zaha, and I think Saka. Probably. Oh, we haven't spoken about one guy.
Saka that low.
No, Somebody I completely forgot to mention, and this is because late riser isn't here. I just assume he always picks up the United guys because Rashford. I think Rashford has to be
Rashford?
we have to rank Rashford very high because I think Fulham is a game that's tailor-made for Rashford's style of play. That you could get lots of space to counter down the
Yeah,
wings.
Rashford.
I think he would in fact go right above for me.
Yeah, right. But Fernandez is back, so that's big. That's
And
really,
Marshall also
really good
probably,
for
right?
United.
Not Ronaldo. I think he plays very well with Marshall also.
Yeah, I really like Rashford as well. To be honest.
Probably put somewhere in the list. They're all good picks really. Within 1 week, who comes out on top? It's really like
Again, it
very
comes
much a
down.
contest.
It comes down to it comes down to personal preference really, because there's not much between Trossard, Rashford, even Saka this week. They're all good picks in their own right.
Absolutely. A lot of good matchups this week. Let's talk Spurs Leeds. Your boy Perisic. When you saw him up top, what did you feel?
I mean, I didn't watch the game, but I saw the highlights, and he looked really good. He hit the post. 3 big chance involvements actually. And if we get news that he isn't starting, if Haaland isn't starting, then I might actually do Gay or Williams to Perisic this week. I really think he has big haul potential. I expect him to play on the left in the 3-4-3 because I expect Kulusevski to start on the right. And if he's in the front three, then Perisic is absolute gold. Essentially, you were talking about the brace potential. I think Perisic does have that haul potential in him.
I'm not sure he's going to start in that front three, though. I thought he was much more effective when they moved him back to the whole fullback role. So they could go with Kulusevski in the three. Maybe I think Lucas was also close. I'm not sure how close exactly. But I'm not really sure that he's going to play in the front three again.
But who do you expect to play in the front three? If Kulusevski playing on the right, Lucas on the left?
Well, maybe, I don't know. But you're right. He could put square pegs and round holes. Perisic could play there. But the problem is, right, I think Leeds are very capable of scoring. And that's why
the other thing is that
go ahead.
And the other thing is that Kulusevski, I don't recall him playing in the front two.
Yeah, that's a good point. He's not played 3-5-2 with Kulusevski because Son, whenever Kudus played, it's usually been with Son.
Yeah, exactly.
That's a good point. But my worry with buying Perisic as an asset this week is I fully expect Leeds to score. They'll probably concede, but against the big teams, they've actually done quite well in terms of their performances and their goal scoring. That's what slightly worries me about buying him this week.
Yeah, they have a very good record against the top six this season.
But yeah, so Kulu is also a great pick for that KDB replacement, which you're talking about. If you have Kane, you probably stick. Anything more to talk about in Spurs?
No, I think we've covered it all.
Let's talk a bit about...
Doherty, do you expect him to start?
I think the Carabao Cup is there. I'm not sure who they're playing, but I think whoever plays in the Carabao Cup probably gets rested in the weekend.
Yeah. I think that would give us a fair indication.
Yeah, I wanted to talk about West Ham. They were very, very poor last week against Palace in terms of the XG was well below 1. There's a lot of calls for Moyes to leave, and a lot of people complaining is that they're actually playing worse at home than away. So they're a complete avoid for me. I think we've been big on Bowen, and that's why we didn't even bring him up in the previous section when we were discussing mids. I think they're a hard avoid.
Yeah, I mean, even this week, they had just 5 shots and a minimal XG of 0.2, 0.3. So they aren't really looking as impressive in recent times.
Not really much over there. Leicester, guys, I think Maddison probably could still work.
Maddison, Barnes, I mean, they've done well in recent weeks, and I think Leicester will win this game again.
There's an interesting dynamic.
I do think there are better options than the Leicester guys. The West Ham at home generally are tight, so I won't expect this to be a game where Leicester score like tons of goals.
So there's an interesting dynamic where now the World Cup squads are all going to be announced before Saturday. The England squad is going Thursday. Brazil and several countries have already announced. Do you think this is going to have a certain impact on certain players being worried about injury? Like, let's take Wilson, for example, right? He's been wanting to get into the squad. Now, it's once he sees a name on there, is he going to be a little bit worried about getting injured? Now, you could make the argument that, he's want to make a claim for a starting spot by playing well, but he knows he's never going to get Kane out of that starting role. Do you think there's a worry about general across the league about players playing half-assed not to get injured?
No, I think it's likely to work the other way. For example, with Wilson, who's looking to get into the squad, and
No, the
I
squad
think
will be
he'll be
announced,
trying to
buddy.
do
The squad will be announced on Thursday. The game is on Saturday. That's the point I'm making.
In that case, maybe. I mean, but again, I mean, will you sort of base your decisions on this assumption that the
No,
players are likely to
but
underperform?
it's just
I'm
a
not really
general.
sure.
It's just a general something that's been on my mind, and I just wanted your thoughts on it. And I think because this is uncharted territory, we have never seen an international tournament being 7 days after the kickoff, and a lot of FA, like a lot of football associations, they to ask their players to be exempt from this week. And I don't really understand what was the FA's point of asking for top 6 matchups not to be held, because teams are just still going to be playing strong lineups, right? KDB is still going to be playing, whether he's playing Brentford or whether he's going to be playing Liverpool. So I really don't know what the point of that was.
Yeah. Again, any Chelsea players to discuss off?
I think I've already spoken about this. I don't. The good thing is we are completely FPL irrelevant, so you don't have to really worry about Chelsea players. Don't have to talk them up. I think we are there for the taking. This is Newcastle's last home game. It's a late kickoff. They're going to hammer us. I expect them to go at us, score 3-4 goals, and I'd be very surprised if we actually do manage to score. Very pessimistic about Chelsea right now. We're definitely a fixture to target.
Yeah, Newcastle at home are generally very good. I mean, a lot of managers are in this predicament where they're sort of deciding between Ward and Pope. I think both of them should do well this week, but I would play Pope just because of the home fixture personally. What would you do?
I completely agree. Home, they are a different animal.
Yeah.
I think Wilson owners also like me, and I say that I think we got a little bit unlucky because we all expected them to do Southampton over. And he got subbed off because of a cold. He's going to be likely available for the last game. There's no muscular issues there with Wilson at all. You could still look to him. But again, in terms if you move to Wolves, Arsenal, like we said, Wolves are a different team now. Wolves aren't a super defensive team. I think Arsenal will score 2 or 3 and keep a clean sheet. Very good fixture for them.
And Arsenal, I mean, their defense has been incredible this season. When you look at XG conceded per 90 or minutes per XG, best team this season. Incredible defense. And a team definitely I would be looking to invest in after the World Cup as well for defensive returns. Incredible team defensively. Very impressed with them.
I want to spend 5 minutes after we wrap up the discussion, just a general outlook for the teams after the World Cup, because I want to drop an anchor here. Something we can come back to, like after 40-45 days, all our memories are going to fade a little bit. What we think about how each team is going to do in the second half of the season, because I think things will change. Momentum might drop, players might get injured. It's almost like coming back for a new season altogether, but without any preseason.
Again, you have to target the fixtures, and that's how you're gonna base your decisions when you sort of make your teams.
I think it's not just that. I think it would also depend on certain teams have more players who might end up going deep. Like, let's say if England go to the final, etc., etc. England have a large representation of players across Premier League teams. But like, I still think, like, for example, Man City, they won't have Haaland going. I'm very bullish on Salah still. He won't be going. It all depends on how the World Cup affects the availability of players. The players who return to their clubs, let's say, well in advance, 2-3 weeks before the Premier League resumes, I think they will definitely be at an advantage.
For sure.
So I think we generally need to keep a lookout for that. And we'll talk a little bit at the end because we have time today. We're not really constrained since we are going on Tuesday. We'll discuss that a little bit. So, right, I think Arsenal, we've spoken about defense is good. I still like Jesus as a pick for the final week.
Jesus and Saka, I think both are decent picks. And again, I mean, they might not be they might not stand out in terms of the fixture because you tend to associate, Wolves being this defensive team. But I still think Arsenal will score a couple of goals, even though their away numbers aren't that great. But still, you'd expect them. They're in a good run of form. Wolves are slightly open this time around, so should be a good fixture.
Right. I think Brighton Villa we've already covered. Do you like the playing a Brighton defender? I think they could keep a clean sheet.
If you have a Brighton defender, sure, start him. I do think this is a favorable fixture for them. And as good as Aston Villa were this week, I mean, they created like what 0.6 xg against United. So yeah, I would have no qualms starting a Brighton defender this week.
Cool. Fulham, Manchester United, I think Andres Pereira might play a big role again this weekend if we have some random absences. I think if you can field Pereira, really don't take a hit, because especially if Mitrovic is out, we've seen he's on penalties, set pieces, and takes up an even more attacking role. So if it comes down to taking a hit or playing Pereira, definitely play Pereira. You agree?
I'm almost most certainly likely to end up in that position if I sort of reverse my transfers, bring Haaland back. And if Mitrovic is out, then I will have to play Pereira, and I have no problem playing him because of the fact that, as you say, he's on penalties, and I do expect Fulham to score once in this. This should be an open game.
This will be the final game before we break.
Yeah.
So hopefully it's a cracker. I'm just going to walk you guys through some of the matchups sent by our friends at Fantasypedia. The Twitter handle is at Fantasy, Paedia, Pedia. First up, we have Nottingham Forest versus Palace, and where we can see Forest concede a load of chances from the central area, which should again be good for Zaha. I'm quite bullish on Zaha for the first time, I think, since I've owned him. But I think centrally he's a completely different player. Much more involved.
Definitely. Again, gets into more goal scoring positions, and the problem which we had in the previous weeks was that he was hogging the left flank, really not getting those kind of opportunities. It's almost as if you're hoping for a penalty to sort of bail you out. But he looked much more threatening as West Ham, and I really hope he starts up front against Forest.
Palace is pretty much even, but I think the Palace really chances conceded aren't of interest to us because none of us really have Forest players. Anyway, let's look at Wolves Arsenal, Bakar. I think like you talked about now. What's interesting is Wolves concede a lot of chances down their flanks. And that's really where Arsenal's strengths are, right? Even Jesus, you see him occupying the left a lot of times. So Martinelli and Saka, the fixture looks good. And Saka, like we've spoken about more and more, what I noticed in the Chelsea game, he's the talisman of the team now. Very much so. More than Jesus or Martinelli.
Yeah, I'd agree. Definitely. On set pieces, on penalties. And again, Jesus is just going through that, let's say, dip in form. He isn't really scoring. I think once he scores once, then he's going to get back in form.
Yep. He's made the World Cup squad, which is good. He didn't make the last one. So both Martinelli and him are included. And I think it's different also for certain players, right? In terms of the World Cup participation, like let's say somebody like Mitrovic, I think he values it a lot more than let's say somebody like a De Bruyne. Today, Mitrovic wants to save himself because today his priority is more than Fulham is Serbia. But for KDB, I don't think it's to that much of an extent. KDB as much prioritizes City's title challenge as he does his participation with Belgium. So it's different for different players. Agree?
Agreed. Yeah. And again, when you look at Serbia, it's Mitrovic or nothing, right? He's like the main talisman. So obviously, in that kind of a situation, you have to sort of prioritize the national team. And it's not as if that Fulham have had a bad start. I mean, they're already sort of surpassed expectations this season. We've got to sort of look at each case individually.
Great. Now, Manchester City versus Brentford. Brentford have conceded 77 chances down the center. To put that in perspective, we talk about Forest as a poor defense. Forest had conceded 65. Just underlines the fact that if Haaland is starting, really don't look anywhere else.
Exactly. It has to be a no-brainer with his ownership as well, and with these numbers. And Zoff, I mean, Brentford's away numbers, they're really poor as well. They conceded like 11 goals in the previous 3 fixtures. And their numbers are all over the place. They conceded like 4 to Villa very recently, 5 to Newcastle prior to that. Again, you want a City captain this week.
Agree. The last one, Fulham versus Manchester United. Again, Fulham also concede a lot of chances down the center. But again, if Marshall is playing, I think he drifts out to the left and he allows Rashford to take in these central roles. Should have plenty of chances for Manchester United as well. And I think Fulham will also look to United's wings where the weakness are. That's where Fulham, they commit their fullbacks forward a lot. Again, high scoring contest looks on the cards here.
Great.
Liverpool, Southampton also similar. Southampton down the right flank, which is Nunes' side. Nunes shot a lot. Nunes was fun, right? The last game against Spurs. On the left side, completely hogging the ball, taking shots. He's so fun.
I mean, no, Nunes is a funny one. So I mean, every single week we think that this is the week where he's going to go crazy. His numbers are incredible. Best shots per game ratio, best XG for 90 ratio in the league this season after Haaland. But again, the only thing is that big haul is missing, and I wonder if this might be the week finally where he comes to life, because the fixture, the matchup, everything is in his favor. So again, I really like him as a partner this week. I know you've done the Mitrovic to Nunes move, and I really hope he comes off for you.
Yes. Cool. Let's just discuss our team. I think I've forgotten to load your team here, Bakar. I'll just read through my team. You could just pull it up on your PC. We'll read it out. I'll just read out my team first. I've got
Sure.
Pope in goal, Trippier, Zuma, and Cancelo. In midfield, I have Saka, Martinelli, Zaha, and KDB. Up top, Wilson, Haaland, and Darwin. I had exact cash for Mitrovic to Darwin, and Mitro's been dropping like a stone. He looked very close to drop this morning, so I made the move. I don't think if they even have other injuries, etc., I'm going to probably be playing Andreas, Gehi, etc. So I think that's hopefully me done for the next 40, 45 days in terms of transfers. Your team, Bakar.
I have Pope in goal, Trippier, Cancelo, Trent in defense. The defense looks good. I'm comfortable playing the double Newcastle. In midfield, I have Zaha, De Bruyne, Salah, Martin, Andreas, Solanke, and Alvarez. On the bench, I have Gehi, Williams, Mitrovic. I'll play Mitrovic over Pereira. Mitrovic is fine, but I doubt that will be the case. I have 2 million in the bank and a free transfer. So now my number one priority has to be to bring Haaland back if he's starting. And the transfers in that case I'll do is I'll sell De Bruyne, I'll sell Alvarez if Alvarez isn't starting, and Haaland will come in, and one of the either the city mids, if we get any news regarding who's starting, or Saka, I think that's going to be my move this week. And if Haaland isn't starting, then I can obviously afford to keep Alvarez, De Bruyne, Salah. I will in that case I'm going to captain Salah, and my move will probably be Gehi to Perisic, and I'll just start Perisic over Andres.
There's a lot of ifs and buts, Bakar.
Again, I mean, I can't really say because there's so many permutations. If Mitrovic is out, if Haaland is out, if Haaland is starting, if Foden is starting, if Foden is not starting, I have to cover plan A, B, C, D, and E.
I know,
So
right?
I just thought I'd be I thought I'd be very clear with my plans, because there are a lot of times when I sort of end up making a different move to the one I mentioned on the pod, and people are like, oh, you said this on the pod, you liar, right? So
Big lie.
yeah, I have to be very clear with my plans.
Speaking of plans, you had left something overnight somewhere. Have you been able to get it back?
Sorry?
You had left something overnight somewhere. That's why the podcast start was delayed a little bit.
What are you trying to imply?
You know what I'm saying, Bakar. It's all right. As we say in India, ye public hai, ye sab janti hai, which translation means that the people know everything.
I still haven't, by the way.
Good excuse to go back there again.
Okay, moving on, Zoff.
Right, before we
let's
go to
not digress from the conversation.
Cool. But before we jump into the Q&A, let's just do a quick outlook. Let's just look back at this season, right, and see like what do you think has gone right for you so far? What do you think you could have done different? Let's spend a few minutes looking back at the last 16 weeks.
There are a couple of things that I'd like to talk about here. Generally, I mean, I tend to trust the premium defenders a lot, and I think I've been let down by how they've performed this season. I mean, Trent has been one. I doubled up on Liverpool defense at the start. That simply didn't work. James was another one, very underwhelming. Perisic. So that's something that has gone wrong with a lot of people, including myself, because the premium defenders haven't really stepped up to the plate, and it's actually the mid-price defenders such as Trippier, Gabriel, who've been doing really well. In terms of my own season, the big mistake that I made was not to captain Haaland in Gameweek 9, and that's probably my biggest regret, because a lot of a lot of decisions went against me from that point onwards, where I sort of plummeted in rank, because before that I was very well set for a good finish. But thankfully, this week has recovered a lot of that damage, and I've sort of halved my rank with 80 points. So yeah, I mean, you win some, you lose some. I can't really point my finger at something other than that, because there are some things which are always likely to go in your favor and some are likely to go against. What about you?
I completely agree with the premium defender, and I think we have both very similar managers in terms of the players we like and we favor. But I think I would still revisit that maybe after this break, because like ultimately you'd expect a lot of these guys to be back and maybe their workload reduces. I think a large reason why they faltered is because we after game week 4, it's just been 3 games every week with Champions League, etc. And I think that probably eases up a little bit in the new year. So I could see myself going back for the likes of James, probably not Perisic now with the rotation factor. Trippier is still going to be a mainstay. I still probably have Cancelo, and I'd still want an Arsenal defender. I still trust the top 6 defenses, and now you can probably include Newcastle in that. So I don't think that was necessarily a mistake per se, just maybe we didn't adapt to the schedule soon enough.
Newcastle have some really good fixtures to start off after the World Cup as well. So I'm sure Trippier is going to be in all of our teams again.
I think tripling up on Newcastle is going to be a priority. But apart from that, not really much else, because I think things have been a bit affected in terms of results and performances because of the schedule. So maybe those have been, we've seen a lot of anomalies over there. But in terms of my personal FPL season, I can't really think of much I would have done too differently. Maybe taken a few risks over and there, but I'm like at what, 140k now. I'm pretty happy with that. Maybe a few decisions would have got me closer to 70, 80, but I don't see anything much better.
Yeah, and that's a very good position to be in, Zoff. And when you look at, when you compare this season to the last season, one thing you would have noticed last season was that a lot of engaged managers were doing much better as compared to this season. So to be in that position right now is a very good platform. You've sort of given yourself to launch, let me put it that way, before the double game weeks and chip strategy at the back end of the season, because that's where it really matters. That's the business end of the season. That's where the winnings occur.
Yeah, and a lot of guys on our Discord also asked, and I should do a plug for our Discord, guys. If you guys want to get on there, you can become a YouTube member or sign up on our Patreon page. That's patreon.com/the FPL Wire. So yeah, if you even ranked around 1 million now, there are going to be a lot of double game weeks coming, because you have like for City, I think are going to have a couple of doubles that need scheduled even prior to the cup postponements. You have Liverpool, Chelsea. So there's going to be a lot of opportunities to make up ground with doubles. So I think if you're not where you are, don't worry. Take a nice chilled out period over this break. And also we should talk about the transfers thing, Bakar, that just got announced yesterday. Did you read that? I thought that was quite weird. If you don't make any transfer during the World Cup break, you get 2 free transfers in game week 17. I didn't understand the logic of that.
It's probably because they haven't really sort of termed this unlimited transfers thing as a wild card, because if they would have sort of said this was a third wild card, then they might not have done it. But almost every engaged manager will end up making use of those unlimited transfers. So I don't really think that is going to come into play. For those who don't know, I mean, FPL have sort of announced that the prices will be frozen after the game week 16 deadline until the game week 17.
Sorry to interrupt you, Bakar.
So
I just wanted to correct you. The price changes can occur on Saturday night. Saturday night, that is on the first day of the game week, price changes will occur. They'll be frozen effectively from Sunday on. So let's say on Saturday, if you have the likes of Neco Williams, etc., who are looking to drop in price, just sell those guys. But again, we remind you that the same price selling system works. If you sell Haaland for 11.8, you will have to pay 12.1 to buy him back. So don't be hasty with selling those guys which you have value on. And another thing we should mention, that the transfers will count towards your rank at the end of the year, and it makes a very small difference, but it does make a difference. Like FPL General, our friend, he was I think 10,194 at the end of last season, and he's finished outside the top 10k just on transfers. So it doesn't make that much of a difference. I would suggest everyone take a break. Don't go to the FPL site. Just set your team up to avoid the drops and chill out for a month.
Yeah, Yeah, just to clarify what Zoff is sort of trying to say, he's basically saying that, if, for example, two managers end up on the same number of points, then FPL sort of ranks them in order of those who've made less transfers. So if you've ended up on the same number of points, but one has made less transfers than the other, then he's going to finish above the guy who's made more transfers. So this is a bit of a tiebreaker in case the managers end up on an equal number of points.
Right. Cool. Now we're done with that. Let's talk about all the teams. Do you see a big change in the top six battle post the World Cup? Where do you see like any shakeups? What's going to happen after?
To be very honest, I haven't given it much thought, and I do think we've seen enough from teams to sort of suggest that the pattern is likely to continue. I don't think there will be any significant changes in terms of what we're likely to see after the World Cup. What do you think?
I think Arsenal, I'm maybe expecting a drop off because they have a lot of players at the World Cup. Jesus, Martinelli. They're lucky that Gabriel hasn't gotten called up. I'm not sure about Saliba, etc. So I think Arsenal is probably the one.
Saliba has been, I think.
He has been, right? It would be very silly if he hasn't. So I'm expecting Arsenal maybe to tail off a little bit. Chelsea also have a lot of players. City also, but City is just such a machine. I'm not as worried about them. But I think Liverpool will actually improve after this period. They're the teams I have my eye on.
City will definitely, yeah, definitely. And again, you expect City to be a level above the rest of the pack. And I do think that that's going to be the case again.
Cool. Let's just do a quick Q&A. We have some time.
Sure, let's go.
Send in your question, guys. I think that's pretty short. I thought we'd go for a bit longer today, but I don't think there's as much to talk about even, right? Because it's pretty much a 1 week free hit. What else do you talk about in terms of strategy and all that stuff?
Yeah, I mean, we've discussed 1 week punts in defense, midfield, forwards. We've discussed Foden, Mitrovic, Wilson. Nothing else really springs to mind.
Yeah.
If you have Dalo, who would you place him with? I mean, I would go with Perisic. What do you reckon, Zoff?
Let's talk about it. Has to be somebody within that bracket, right? Because I think Perisic is significantly
like,
more.
What? 5.6.
Estupinan? I like Estupinan in that similar price bracket.
Yeah, but again, does he have that haul potential?
He does, right?
I don't think so.
Yeah, possibly not as much at Perisic, but if you look at within that bracket of 4.5-ish, I think he's the sort of the guy who has double digit in him. Firmino, 1 week punt. I don't think I like the role that Firmino is playing right now. I would prefer Jesus over Firmino.
I think yeah, agreed. I think there are better options. He's playing a bit deep.
Yep. What else? Somebody's asking about KDB to Salah. We already covered that earlier, bro. We have a super chat from Nehal. He's asking thoughts on -4 for Alvarez, Wilson to Kane, Greenwood. Is Greenwood going to start? I'm not sure, right? Or maybe he's looking at that as a dead spot. I'm not sure. But I think Greenwood probably does start. He played quite well last game.
I'm sure he's looking at it as a dead spot because Greenwood has like Spurs away. That's not a fixture you'd want to bring him in
That's
for.
true.
So it's essentially
For Kane.
I don't know. I won't sell. Yeah, I won't sell Wilson to Kane because Kane is not going to be your captain, especially for a -4. It doesn't make too much sense to go there because Wilson has potential to score this week anyway.
I think he's probably. I think Alvarez to Solanke in that case, and just stick with Wilson.
Yeah. Or Martial.
Or Martial. Cool. Ryan is asking 2 free transfers, Salah and Solanke in, Mitro and one of Martinelli, Rashford out, which actually gives me a trio of Haaland, KDB, Salah. Salah and Solanke in, Mitro, and I think Rashford can possibly match Salah this week. Maybe brave words. I don't necessarily think there's a need to sell Martinelli or Rashford, but it's for 2 free transfers. Keep in mind, it's not a hit.
I'd make that move if Salah's likely to be your captain.
Salah and Solanke. Because
Martinelli, Rashford both have potential this week.
They both have potential, but for 2 free transfers, it's not bad. It all depends on how high you rate Solanke. I'm not really a big fan of getting Solanke in game week 16. It doesn't feel like a haul player, right? Rashford feels like a haul player. That's probably where I am. Yeah. Nehal confirmed it is a dead spot, like you said. So
Yeah.
I wouldn't do that, Nehal. Kaushik, one of our members, is asking.
Wilson out for Nunes. This is a very, very popular question. Of Wilson out for Nunes. Would you do it?
For
if
free,
you have,
yes.
in my opinion, if you have no better transfers to make this week, I would do it as well. Yeah.
I like it.
But it's not a pressing transfer though. It's not worth it, and it's not a pressing transfer.
Yeah. I don't know which team is in worse shape right now, Chelsea or Southampton.
You seem very downbeat this week.
Yeah, I'm just happy that I'm going to get a break now for 4-5 weeks. I'm just so drained. So
Yeah.
Ritvik is asking who among Trossard, Kulu, Madison, or Rashford? It's Rashford for me.
I would probably go with Rashford from those four as well.
Cool. That's us. I think we already covered what to do with Alvarez. Let's just do a couple more questions. What else? I think most of these questions we've already covered. I'm not seeing anything really. If not,
I think we've covered almost
this is an
everything.
interesting question. If any city mid we get options, we find out like I don't think we really get news if anybody's starting or not. Would you go for any other city mid other than KDB or Foden? Let's say we get some news. Mahrez or so.
Mahrez would interest me. Yeah, Mahrez would interest me if he's starting. But the thing with Mahrez off is that he's once this season. It's just whether or not you think that, let's say, 60 to 65 minutes of Mahrez are as good as Pickford or Trossard or Saka this week. So it's an interesting one.
Cool. Right. Let's talk a bit about the cricket now, Bakar. What do you think of your prospects tomorrow?
I'd like to fancy our chances. Generally tend to do well against New Zealand in knockout tournaments. But again, we're a wildcard entry, and I don't really fancy our batting against Lockie Ferguson, Trent Bolt, and Saudi. I'd be surprised if our batting clicked. But I have a good feeling about tomorrow, and I have a good feeling that India will play England as well. So let's see. Fingers crossed for Sunday.
How many deliveries do you want Babar Azam to play?
1. Yeah, he's woefully out of form, and Harris is looking really good. It's just a shame that he's not being utilized in the power play because the team management is just very conservative in their thought processes. They should target the ceiling with someone like a Harris in power play. So yeah, that's the way I'd go for.
Yeah, I'd agree with that. I think the main thing is you have to get past the New Zealand bowling. I think the bowling is very good in those conditions, especially. And batting is definitely your weak point. So I think that's what it's going to come down to.
Yeah.
Going back to a quick FPL question
Again,
sorry, I just said we have a few FPL questions. Would you go for Alvarez captain if we find out that Haaland's not starting?
No, I would go with Salah captain.
Right, similarly, because 50, the thing with Alvarez, and this again I mentioned at the top, what put me off is you don't know the minutes. Pep can do anything, sub him off at 45 minutes or whatever. So I wouldn't do that. Cool. And so yeah, let's talk about the India game. I think England are a tough opponent, and again it comes down to the bowling. If we can handle their bowling, the problem is our bowling is so weak they can pretty much chase anything we put on the board.
I don't think that's the case. I mean, I read India's bowling. Arshdeep is a great find. I'm more worried about your batting, to be honest. Rohit isn't in form. I'm not really sure about KL in the knockout tournaments. I think your batting is actually heavily dependent on Virat and Sky. So I mean, I know those two guys have been super reliable, but if they fail in a knockout game, I worry for your batting in that case.
Let's talk about Virushka, Bakar. You had some very strong views over the last couple of years on that. Would you like to share?
On what?
Virushka. You know what I'm talking about.
No, they're not available for the public domain. Let's keep it between ourselves.
Cool. Let's just talk about the World Cup. Who do you think is making the finals? The football.
I support Italy, so I mean it's a
Same,
sad one
buddy.
for me that Italy
Same,
haven't
buddy.
made it.
Absolutely right. Italy are the team I support in every tournament. It doesn't feel like a World Cup without the
Yeah,
Italians there. So who are you gunning for now
yeah.
that
So
they are
I'm
out?
I'll be supporting Argentina now. I think I'm sure the whole Argentine team is going to be playing for Leo, and I just hope they give him a good song before he retires at the end. So I mean, I just hope he wins the World Cup.
Yeah, that would be nice, but I'm rooting for Belgium. I just love watching KDB play, and they have Hazard and a bunch of other players I like. It's going to be Belgium for me. Probably Germany a close second. Germany always do well in World Cups, but I'd be delighted if Belgium go far.
Kai
Cool.
Havertz starting for Germany up front.
Hopefully, because yeah, Timo is gone right anymore, and that's so sad. I was gutted for
Yeah,
Timo to miss out.
Timo's not. Yeah, there's no Timo available. But again, I don't think Belgium or Germany got it for me this time around. I think it's going to be one of the South American teams.
What do you think about England's prospects?
I mean, they're ranked really highly by the bookmakers, but again, I don't like what I see when I look at their team. So I mean, I'm sure they'll make it to the knockout stages, but I don't think they're going to go all the way.
Yeah, I think they'll get out of their group, but ultimately, Southgate is so negative. I really hope he picks Madison and he goes for it a bit more. But like in general, I don't know if the conditions, I don't know how the weather, etc., are going to be like. I think the South American teams are going to do well. I don't know if how effective the air conditioning, the stadium cooling, etc., is going to be in Qatar. It'll probably be still quite warm there, right? You'd expect.
Yeah.
Cool. Let's wrap up then. Any parting words?
All right. All right, guys. Have a good game week 16, and yeah, we haven't really finalized our plans yet for the World Cup. We'll keep you updated on that front as well. Wish you all the best for this week, and we'll catch you on the other side.
All right, guys. Enjoy the final week. Take a break. Stay away from the FPL site. No tinkering. Get refreshed, and we'll see you back again in a month or so, ready to go again. Goodbye for now.